The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Concordat stretched across three-dimensional spaces, its crystalline architecture defying conventional physics. Representatives from over 10,000 civilizations gathered in their designated sectors, their forms ranging from pure energy beings to silicon-based life forms. Today's emergency session had drawn an unprecedented attendance. The topic: humanity. Supreme Archon Vilera, a being of pure thought and light, pulsed with concern as she addressed the assembly. In the mere span of 2 centuries, since achieving faster-than-light travel, humans have expanded across 17 sectors, established 43 major colonies, and developed technologies that should have taken millennia to master. The hall erupted in a cascade of mental signatures, each species communicating their increasing alarm through their preferred method. The Zizextheri delegation, resembling crystalline snowflakes, scattered prismatic light in agitation. The Mercian, giant feline entities, growled their displeasure in subsonic frequencies. They do not follow the progression protocols, announced first speaker Ctal of the Mercian. Every species is required to develop through established technological and social stages. The humans simply skip steps. Holographic displays materialized throughout the chamber, showing human achievements that defied conventional understanding. A space station constructed from an asteroid, using principles that combined quantum engineering with primitive welding techniques. A colony surviving on a toxic world through a mixture of advanced biotechnology and surprisingly simple mechanical solutions. That is precisely the problem. Vilera responded, her light form dimming slightly. They don't progress like other species. They solve problems through what they call lateral thinking, combining primitive and advanced solutions in ways that shouldn't work, but somehow do. The Zizextheri representative, named in light, projected its thoughts. Last cycle, a human mining operation encountered one of our quantum barriers, technology we use to protect sensitive spatial regions. Instead of respecting the barrier or attempting to decode it, they simply went around it. They mapped the barrier's edges and found a path through normal space that avoided it entirely. No species has ever considered such a primitive solution. The assembly buzzed with mixed reactions. Some found the human approach elegant in its simplicity. Others saw it as dangerous ignorance of established protocols. A new hologram appeared, showing the human settlement on a world that experienced regular gamma-ray bursts. Instead of abandoning the planet as protocol dictated, the humans had developed a hybrid shield system. It combined ancient Roman arch principles with quantum field manipulation, creating a protective dome that was both incredibly complex and surprisingly simple. They are spreading too fast, Ctal growled. Their solutions, while effective, ignore millions of years of established safety protocols. They must be contained before they destabilize the entire sector. Vilera's form brightened suddenly, commanding attention. And how do you propose we contain a species that treats our most advanced barriers as mere inconveniences? A species that views our careful protocols not as wisdom to be followed, but as puzzles to be solved. The Theoretical Sciences Commissioner, a gas-based entity named Whisper of Dawn, floated forward. We have analyzed their development pattern. It defies all known models of civilization advancement. When faced with a problem, they don't search for the approved solution. They try everything simultaneously, succeeding through sheer stubborn persistence. The hall fell silent as images of failed human attempts flashed by. Explosions, collapsed structures, failed experiments. But each failure was followed by success, often achieved through methods that combine their failures into unexpected solutions. Perhaps, Vilera suggested, her light pattern forming complex geometries of contemplation, we have been approaching this wrong. We see their chaos as a threat to order. But what if their chaos is a different kind of order? One we simply haven't understood yet. Named in light pulsed with disagreement. Their unpredictability makes them dangerous. They must be guided toward proper development paths. And how many enforcement fleets have we already lost trying to guide them? Ctal responded, ears flattened. They view our attempts at control as challenges to overcome. Each enforcement action has only spurred their development in unexpected directions. Valera expanded her form, drawing all attention. Then perhaps it is time for us to adapt. For the first time in the Concordat's history, we face a species that will not be contained by our traditional methods. The question before us is not how to make humanity conform to our order, but how to adapt our order to accommodate their chaos. The assembly erupted again, but beneath the outrage and fear, a new sentiment began to emerge: curiosity. For a governing body that had maintained order across the galaxy for millions of years, humanity presented something entirely new, a challenge they couldn't solve through established protocols. As the debate raged on, Valera observed the holographic displays of human achievements. Perhaps, she mused, the real threat wasn't humanity's chaos. It was the Concordat's rigid adherence to order. The humans were teaching them something valuable, if only they were willing to learn. The diplomatic vessel Eternal Harmony approached Earth's solar system with all the ceremony befitting a Concordat flagship. Its crystalline hull pulsed with carefully calibrated colors, the traditional display of peaceful intentions used across thousands of civilizations for millions of years. Ambassador Terra, a being of pure mental energy contained within a ceremonial matrix, prepared for what should have been a routine diplomatic contact. Approaching human defense perimeter, announced First Navigator Idletie, their tentacles flowing across the navigation interface. Their primitive sensors should detect our peace signals any moment. Terra's energy form flickered with what passed for amusement among their kind. After the Council's debate, they had been chosen to establish formal diplomatic contact with humanity. The plan was simple: demonstrate the Concordat's overwhelming technological superiority, then guide humanity toward proper development protocols. The first sign that things wouldn't go according to protocol came when their sensors detected something impossible: a small human vessel approaching at speeds that should have torn it apart. Impossible, Yiltai muttered, their tentacles twisting in confusion. They're using a fusion drive combined with, is that a solar sail? The principles are completely incompatible. Before anyone could analyze the bizarre human approach further, a transmission cut through their communication system, not on any of the standard diplomatic frequencies, but on a crude radio wave. Concordat vessel Eternal Harmony, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force. You're approaching a restricted zone. State your intentions. The bridge crew exchanged baffled thoughts. How had the humans known their ship's name? Their cloaking systems were supposed to be impenetrable to human technology. Terra moved their energy form to the communications array. This is Ambassador Terra of the Galactic Concordat. We come in peace to guide humanity toward proper. Ambassador, Captain Chen interrupted, causing several crew members to pulse with shock at the breach of diplomatic protocol. We've detected unusual energy signatures from your vessel's secondary systems. Our analysis suggests weapons charging sequences. Terra's form flickered in genuine surprise. The energy signatures were from their defensive systems, automatically activated near any developing civilization. No species had ever detected them before, let alone correctly identified their purpose. A misunderstanding, Terra began. These are standard protective measures. You have 5 minutes to power down all weapons systems, Chen replied. After that, we'll consider your approach hostile. The bridge erupted in chaos. Power down their defenses. The suggestion was absurd. No diplomatic vessel had ever been asked to make itself vulnerable to a developing species. Captain Chen, Terra tried again. Perhaps we could discuss this after we demonstrate our technological superiority. We have much to teach humanity about proper development. The human response came in the form of action rather than words. Suddenly, the small human vessel split into 3 separate ships, a capability their sensors hadn't detected. Each section carried what appeared to be a cobbled-together mix of technologies that shouldn't work together. Quantum field generators powered by solar cells, gravitational lenses focused by primitive mirrors. 4 minutes. Chen's voice came again, calm and unfazed. Ilte's tentacles twisted in agitation. Ambassador, they've surrounded us in a triangular formation. Each vessel is generating something. Our sensors can't make sense of it. They're combining technologies in ways that violate basic physical principles. Xterra's energy form pulsed rapidly as they analyzed the situation. Everything they knew about technological progression said the humans couldn't possibly be a threat. Yet somehow these primitives had detected their cloaked ship, identified their defensive systems, and deployed countermeasures that their sensors couldn't even properly analyze. 3 minutes, Chen announced. And Ambassador, those energy spikes from your engine core suggest you're considering a rapid departure. I should mention that we've already established a localized field that will make conventional FTL travel interesting. Recommend against trying it. Impossible. The humans couldn't have that capability. Yet when Xterra checked their systems, they found that something was indeed interfering with their FTL calculations, something that combined quantum principles with what appeared to be primitive radio waves. Ambassador, Ilte's thoughts carried urgent concern. They're using their solar sails to focus some kind of particle beam. The configuration makes no sense, but it's working. 2 minutes remained when Xterra made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. They powered down their defensive systems. The response was immediate. The human vessels resumed their original combined form, and Captain Chen's tone warmed considerably. Thank you, Ambassador. Now, would you like to discuss actual diplomatic relations? We have coffee. As Xterra prepared to board the human vessel, another breach of countless protocols, they finally understood what the Council had failed to grasp. Humanity wasn't simply ignoring protocols or breaking rules. They were operating on a fundamentally different premise, that the impossible was simply a challenge waiting to be overcome, preferably in the most improbable way possible. The diplomatic mission had failed in its original objective of guiding humanity toward proper development. Instead, it had succeeded in teaching the Concordat a valuable lesson. Perhaps proper development wasn't as proper as they had thought. The Concordat's Central Research Archive was considered the pinnacle of galactic achievement, a vast complex where the combined knowledge of 10,000 civilizations was stored and studied. Today, its pristine halls witnessed something unprecedented: human scientists arguing with the archive's primary quantum computer. With all due respect, Dr. Maya Patil gestured at the holographic display, her expression mixing frustration with amusement. Your solution is unnecessarily complicated. The quantum computer, an artificial intelligence that had guided technological development for millennia, pulsed with what could only be described as indignation. The quantum barrier problem has remained unsolved for 3.2 million years. The theoretical framework alone requires processing power beyond your species' current capabilities. Chief Archivist Zelon, their crystalline form shimmering with concern, observed the exchange with growing alarm. The humans had been granted access to the archive as a gesture of diplomacy after the failed first contact mission. No one had expected them to immediately challenge one of the galaxy's greatest unsolved problems. The quantum barrier problem was simple to state but impossible to solve: how to transmit information instantly across unlimited distances without breaking causality. Every spacefaring race had tried. All had failed. See, that's your first mistake. Maya's colleague, Dr. James Chen, stepped forward, holding up what appeared to be a primitive electronic device. You're trying to solve it with pure quantum mechanics. We thought we'd try something different. Zelon's crystalline structure vibrated with curiosity. The device in Chen's hands looked absurdly simple, almost prehistoric by Concordat standards. That appears to be based on 20th century Earth technology, they observed. Technically, it's a modified ham radio, James grinned, with some quantum entanglement circuitry we built in Maya's garage. The quantum computer's processing cores accelerated. Impossible. The energy requirements alone for quantum entanglement would be massive if we were doing it your way, Maya interrupted. But we're not trying to maintain stable quantum states across light years. We're doing something much stupider. Zelon watched in fascination as the humans set up their device. More archivists gathered, drawn by the spectacle of primitive technology in their advanced facility. The quantum computer continued to protest, citing violations of established physical laws. "The problem with your approach," Maya explained while James tinkered with the device, "is that you're trying to send the entire quantum state. We figured, why not just send the differences? Quantum states cannot be partially transmitted," the computer stated. "This is a fundamental principle of, unless," James held up a finger, "you're not actually transmitting the quantum state at all. What if you're just using quantum entanglement to synchronize timing for good old-fashioned radio waves?" The assembly of archivists buzzed with confusion. Zelon's crystalline form sparkled with intense interest. "You're combining quantum mechanics with primitive radio technology. The principles are completely incompatible. Only if you follow the rules." Maya smiled. "We call it quantum-assisted analog transmission, or QAAT for short. The quantum entanglement doesn't carry the message. It just tells the receiver when to listen to specific radio frequencies." James pressed a button on the device. "We've set up a receiver on Earth. According to your theories, it should take at least 3 days for any signal to reach that distance." The quantum computer's displays flickered as it prepared to explain, again, why this couldn't possibly work. Then a sound filled the archive. The clear, impossible sound of a human voice from Earth responding in real time. "Signal received, James. Crystal clear. How's the weather in the Concordat?" The archive erupted in chaos. The quantum computer's processing cores nearly overloaded trying to explain the impossibility of what had just happened. Zelon's crystalline form vibrated at frequencies that suggested either extreme excitement or extreme distress. "But how?" Zelon finally managed to ask. Maya shrugged. "We stopped trying to solve the quantum problem and started thinking about what we actually needed to accomplish. Perfect quantum transmission is impossible, but we don't need perfect. We just need good enough." "Good enough." The quantum computer's voice carried what sounded like offense. "This violates dozens of established principles." "Yeah," James grinned, "we get that a lot. But it works. We're using quantum entanglement as a timing system, regular radio waves for the actual transmission, and some clever signal processing we borrowed from 1940s radio operators. It's not elegant, but it gets the job done." Zelon studied the device more closely. "You solved one of the galaxy's greatest technological challenges, with primitive radio equipment. And duct tape," Maya added. "Never underestimate the power of duct tape." As news of the human solution spread through the archive, Zelon observed an interesting phenomenon. The younger archivists, particularly those who had been frustrated by the rigid protocols of Concordat research, were showing intense interest in the human approach. Several were already asking about primitive Earth technologies they had previously dismissed. The quantum computer continued to protest that the human solution wasn't proper, wasn't elegant, violated fundamental principles. But it couldn't deny the results. Instant communication across vast distances, achieved through a combination of advanced quantum mechanics and technology, so old that most species had forgotten it existed. Perhaps, Zelon mused, watching Maya explain their solution to a growing crowd of fascinated young archivists. This was why humans were so dangerous and so valuable. They didn't just think outside the box. They questioned whether a box was necessary in the first place. The Concordat's emergency response chamber had never been this crowded. Representatives from every major spacefaring civilization stood shoulder to shoulder, or equivalent appendage to appendage, all eyes fixed on the massive holographic display showing the approaching catastrophe. The Void Plague, as it had been designated, was unlike anything the galaxy had encountered in millions of years. It wasn't a traditional disease or weapon. It was something far worse. A quantum corruption that spread through space itself, turning ordered matter into chaos. "The containment barriers are failing," announced Supreme Defense Coordinator Vigsnil, their energy form flickering with distress. We've lost contact with the Andromeda arm. 17 billion lives at risk. The assembled representatives watched in horror as another section of space turned gray on the display. Another region lost to the spreading corruption. The Concordat's most advanced technologies, developed over millions of years, were proving useless against this threat. The quarantine protocols have failed, reported First Speaker Call. Our models predict total galactic corruption within 30 standard days. In the midst of this chaos, a single human voice cut through the panic. Have you tried turning it off and on again? All attention turned to Dr. Sarah Chen. The same Captain Chen who had confronted the diplomatic mission months earlier, now serving as humanity's crisis representative. She stood before the massive display, studying the patterns of corruption with an expression that seemed almost amused. This is not a malfunctioning computer, Representative Chen. Vexnil's tone carried centuries of patronizing authority. This is a fundamental breakdown of quantum coherence across space-time. Yeah, I got that, Sarah nodded, stepping closer to the display. But look at the pattern. It's not random. It's following the galaxy's natural quantum field lines, like a computer virus following a network. The chamber fell silent. No one had noticed this pattern. They had been too focused on applying standard containment protocols. Even if your observation is correct, Catal growled, how does this help? We cannot simply restart space itself. Sarah's smile widened. Actually, we can. We just need to think smaller. Way smaller. She pulled out what appeared to be an ancient Earth smartphone. The assembled representatives watched in bewilderment as she connected it to the chamber's advanced systems. During the Quantum Barrier Project, we discovered something interesting, she explained while typing. Space isn't continuously quantum. It's quantized, like digital information. And just like digital information, it can be backed up and restored. The quantum computer's voice filled the chamber. Impossible. The computing power required to back up even a cubic meter of spacetime would exceed the combined processing capacity of every computer in the galaxy. Unless, Sarah held up her phone, you're not trying to back up everything, just the changes, like a Git repository for reality. Before anyone could question what a Git repository was, she had uploaded a program to the chamber systems. The holographic display suddenly shifted, showing spacetime at a quantum level. See these patterns? She pointed to recurring structures in the quantum fabric. The void plague isn't destroying spacetime. It's corrupting its base configuration. Like a virus changing the computer's operating system. But if we can restore the original configuration, the power requirements would be astronomical, Vexnil protested. Not if we use your quantum network as a transmission medium and our QAAT system for coordination, Sarah countered. We don't need to power the restoration ourselves. We just need to remind space how it's supposed to behave. The chamber erupted in debate. What she was suggesting was unprecedented, combining primitive human technology with the most advanced systems in the galaxy. It violated countless safety protocols. It probably violated several laws of physics. But they were running out of options. How can we test this? Cull asked, ears flat against their head. Sarah pointed to a small region of corrupted space. Let me try it there. Worst case scenario, nothing happens. Best case, we save the galaxy with a smartphone app. The next few hours were tense as human engineers worked alongside the galaxy's greatest minds to implement Sarah's plan. They combined quantum computers with modified Earth electronics, linked ancient radio transmitters with advanced field generators, and wrote code that merged programming principles from a dozen different centuries. When they activated the system, everyone held their breath, or equivalent respiratory function. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, in the test region, space itself seemed to flicker. Like a computer rebooting, the corruption wavered and vanished. Normal space returned. It worked. Sarah grinned, already typing on her phone. Now we just need to scale it up. anyone got a really long extension cord. As the combined forces of humanity and the Concordat raced to implement the solution galaxy-wide, Vixnil approached Sarah. "Your species continues to confound us. You solved in hours what our greatest minds couldn't solve in weeks." Sarah shrugged, still typing. "Sometimes the best solutions are the stupid ones. We're good at stupid." "Perhaps," Vixnil mused, watching as humans and aliens work together to save the galaxy using a combination of technologies that shouldn't work together. "What we call stupid is simply a different kind of smart." The Concordat's Hall of Contemplation was usually reserved for the galaxy's most solemn ceremonies. Today it hosted something entirely different, a party. Human music, everything from classical orchestral pieces to synthetic pop, echoed through the crystalline chambers while representatives from thousands of species celebrated the galaxy's survival. Supreme Archon Vilara, watching from her preferred observation point near the ceiling, found herself fascinated by the scene below. Younger members of traditionally rigid species were attempting human dance moves. The Zitex theory, usually so formal, had discovered they could use their crystalline forms to create impromptu-like shows to match the music. Even the Mercian were bobbing their heads to the rhythm. Quite a change from 6 months ago, isn't it? Ambassador Sarah Chen, recently promoted after the Void Plague crisis, floated up to Vilara's level in what appeared to be a chair made from repurposed anti-gravity modules and an old Earth recliner. Indeed, Vilara's light form pulsed with amusement. Though I must admit, watching the head archivist attempt what you call the robot is somewhat concerning. Sarah laughed, taking a sip from her drink, coffee mixed with a Centaurian energy beverage that most species considered too potent to consume. "You know what the best part is? They're not just copying us anymore. They're starting to experiment on their own. Did you see the Quantum Physics Institute's latest paper?" Vilara had. A group of young researchers had combined human-style garage engineering with advanced Concordat theory to create something entirely new. Their paper had caused quite a stir, particularly because they'd included hand-drawn diagrams alongside quantum equations. "The old order is changing," Vilara observed. "Not everyone is happy about it." "Change is scary," Sarah agreed, adjusting her chair's height with what looked like a video game controller. "But necessary. You know what we humans say, adapt or die." Below them, a group of junior diplomats from various species had gathered around Dr. Maya Patel, who was explaining something using bar napkins and borrowed jewelry to build an impromptu model. Vilara's sensors detected quantum field manipulations mixed with what appeared to be principles from Earth's Industrial Revolution. 6 months ago, Vilara mused, the Council wanted to contain humanity's chaos. Now we're embracing it. The question is, where does it lead? Sarah grinned, pulling out her ever-present smartphone, now modified with so many alien technologies that it barely resembled its original form. "Want to see something cool? We've been working on a new project. Well, more like a new way of thinking about old projects." She pulled up a holographic display showing what appeared to be a star system. But something was odd about it. The planets weren't moving in standard orbits. They were dancing, shifting in patterns that should have been impossible. "What am I looking at?" Vilara asked, her light form shifting closer to study the display. "We call it dynamic stellar engineering," Sarah explained. "Instead of trying to make planets suitable for life, we're making solar systems that can adapt to different species' needs. The planets shift orbits to maintain optimal conditions for whatever civilization needs them." "That's..." Vilara paused, searching for the right word. "Impossible." "Yep," Sarah agreed cheerfully. "Just like instant communication was impossible. And backing up space-time was impossible. We're getting pretty good at impossible things lately." Vilara watched as more partygoers gathered around Sarah's display, each adding their own suggestions and ideas. A ZX theory crystalline engineer proposed using their species' natural resonance properties to stabilize the orbital shifts. A Mercian physicist suggested incorporating their understanding of gravitational waves. each impossible idea built on the others, creating something entirely new. You know what your species' real gift is? Vilera asked, observing the spontaneous collaboration below. It's not that you ignore the rules or find unconventional solutions. It's that you make others believe they can do the same. Sarah nodded, watching as a young Concordat researcher excitedly explained her idea for combining Earth's ancient steam engine principles with quantum field manipulation. We never thought we were special, you know. We just never learned when to stop trying. The Council meets tomorrow to discuss the galaxy's new direction, Vilera said. Many are suggesting we need to revise our fundamental approach to civilization development. Some are even proposing we replace proper development protocols with what they're calling adaptive innovation guidelines. Let me guess, the guidelines will be more like suggestions than rules. Indeed, though I suspect humans will treat them more like challenges than suggestions. The party continued below, a living demonstration of what happened when rigid order met creative chaos. Species that had never mixed were sharing ideas, combining technologies and breaking rules that had stood for millions of years. And somehow, impossibly, it was working. You know what the best part is? Sarah asked, finishing her coffee energy drink hybrid. This is just the beginning. Wait until you see what happens when everyone starts thinking like this. Vilera's form brightened with what might have been concern or excitement, perhaps both. The galaxy will never be the same. Nope, Sarah agreed, pulling out a roll of duct tape to fix a wobble in her anti-gravity chair. But then again, staying the same was never really an option, was it? As the celebration continued, Vilera reflected on how far they'd come. The Concordat had sought to contain humanity's chaos, only to discover that chaos, properly understood, might be exactly what the galaxy needed, not to replace order, but to complement it, challenge it, and help it evolve. The future would be messy, unpredictable, and probably held together in places with duct tape, but it would also be more vibrant, more innovative, and more alive than anyone had thought possible. And somehow, that seemed exactly right.